So I'm going to show you guys how to use the new wrap. To start with, you want to have an appropriately sized roll, and we'll give you instructions on how to make the roll. And then you lay the wrap over top of the roll. And the most important thing to do is to make sure that these arm straps start just above the shoulders. So if you guys can see that here. So I'm starting with the arm straps, the shoulders, and that will kind of help me decide how to adjust the rest of the nest. So after I've got the shoulders at the arm straps, I now want to make sure that the roll, the bottom of the roll, goes all the way up to the baby's butt. So to do this, I'm just going to lift this wrap really quick and pull the pull the roll until it's touching the baby's butt here. So that's how we can get this wrap to adjust to any baby's size. Okay. So now that I have the baby in this supine positioning, I can tuck the wrap under the roll just a little bit. It doesn't need to be, it doesn't need to be wrapped all the way under. It can just be kind of gently tucked in here. And then you can do the arm straps. So there's a hole here for one of the straps to go through. And this is going to keep the baby's hands close to the face. And then for the feet, you're going to bring this foot strap up over the legs, but we want to make sure that the legs are flexed. So I have his feet are backwards because he has awkwardly large feet. So I'm flexing at the hips here, and I'm flexing at the knees. And so I want to encourage his legs to be flexed when I bring the bottom strap over. And then I can just gently tuck that side and gently tuck this side. Okay, and that is the basics of using the wrap. Next, if you want to have that full circumferential containment around the head, then you can bring the roll around the head here, bring this side of the roll around, and then you can tuck it in so that you have that full circumferential containment. So having containment like this is going to reduce stress. The baby's going to be a lot calmer, more developmentally appropriate so that their bones and their muscles can grow. But I won't get too much into that detail. So next, I want to show you guys how to log roll the baby into a different position. So I'm going to take these straps off. And it's pretty quick to take these off if you need to get to the baby quickly. So when I log roll, I need to pull this white base of the wrap out so it's loose. And then I can just lift one side and log roll the baby. Now he's not very heavy, he weighs like nothing, so he's not turning super easily, but. And then once you've got your baby in a side-lying position, then you can tuck in the edges. And again, just a gentle tuck, and that'll keep your baby in a side-lying position. Now notice I don't have him all the way to the side. So for some babies, it's beneficial for them to only be slightly turned. So I have this baby just slightly turned, and by tucking this roll under his back a little bit, it's going to keep him in that side-lying position without him falling away. Because all too often, when the nest is kind of far away and we put them on their sides, eventually they fall back. So I'm just log rolling him a little bit and tucking this part of the roll under the back. If you want him in a full side-lying position, you can keep rolling him. And he can be in more of a full side-lying position. And then you can still use these arm straps. to tuck and tuck on this side. And then same thing with the bottom feet straps. We're going to bring these up and tuck here. Okay, and then again we can give him that full circumferential containment, so he's got the containment all the way around. Now, so if we want to go prone positioning, I'm going to undo these. And we're going to log roll him back to a supine first. When you put them prone, you might have to give them more room at the bottom of the nest. So might have to pull this. You don't have to adjust the baby. You can always just adjust the roll, which is nice. You're not always picking up the baby and handling them so much. So we're just going to adjust the roll down a little so he has more room to go prone. And now I have my prone pillow or my surfboard, and it's just a gel pillow wrapped in a diaper cloth. And when I put them prone, it's going from their head to their umbilicus. Okay. I'm going to give him a little more room here for his feet. So notice his hands are up by his face, and they're kind of falling around the gel pillow. So we don't want to have arms, out like this. We don't want arching here. We don't want to bend in the back, right? So we want to have his shoulders are rounded and his back is rounded. Okay. And the head should just be slightly turned to the side. So his head doesn't turn, of course, on this doll. But we don't want their head to turn all the way to the side. Just a little bit to the side is plenty. Okay, and then here at the hips, we have the hips are flexed. Again, his feet look funny, just ignore that part. His knees are flexed here. And then once we have him in the position we want, we can just gently tuck the sides and bring the arm straps over. And again, through this hole. And tuck here, and then tuck the feet, or the bottom here. So whenever we're positioning our baby, we always want to make sure that they are as low in the nest as possible, because this nest is what's going to help them flex their legs and give them that containment and that security and help with their bone and their muscle development. So even on this one, I could probably bring it up a little higher. Okay, and then here for that head containment, and to make sure they don't kind of fall off the edge or the top of the nest here. They've got that head containment. This is also really nice for when your baby's intubated, because the baby won't be able to kind of push themselves up or downward dog as much, and then self-extubate. It's going to help them keep them a little bit more secure. So the next thing I want to talk about is keeping your baby supported developmentally during cares. So a lot of times when we're doing the baby's assessment, it's very stressful. The baby's flailing with their arms and their legs and they're crying. Maybe their head isn't midline, or their head is turned to the side, and the nest is kind of far away, so they have lots of room to just kick and be stressed. So to help minimize the baby's stress, we want to, even during care time, we want to keep the nest. You see what I'm doing here? I'm pushing the nest close to the baby. We want to keep the nest close. And we can also use this to keep their head midline. So just by pressing the roll close to the baby's head and using this fabric to tuck under the roll is going to help keep the baby's head midline. So it's going to help keep this nest close to their head to keep it midline. So when we're doing their assessment, what's really nice about this is we can keep them well contained and minimize their stress levels while we're working on them. So if I'm changing diaper, I can keep the baby's arms contained while I'm down here doing diaper. And then the same thing goes for when you're doing temperature or working on the upper half of their body. So we can keep their legs flexed and contained while also working up here and doing baby's temperature or whatever. So what's really nice about this fabric is this fabric here is stretchy. So we want babies to be able to kick a little bit. So we want them to be able to press out, kick out, and then recoil back into a flexion just like they would inside of mom. So if the baby was inside of mom, they would kick and hit the edge of the womb and then come back into a flexion. And that's what's going to be really good for their muscle and their bone development. So in order to keep the baby secure and to keep this from coming loose, over the course of a few hours, this portion of the fabric should be kind of snug. And then this portion can be a little bit loose. So when we kind of snug this part and then the baby is able to kick, this is still a little bit loose, but it's still bringing them back into that flexion after they kick out. And that's really important when we are positioning the babies, because we want them to be in that flexed, contained position while they're sleeping, but we don't want them to be completely restricted. They shouldn't be able to not move at all. That's not the idea. The idea is just to keep them flexed and contained while allowing for a little bit of movement. And now that being said, when we are doing our assessments on these babies, we should be taking the time to also provide a little bit of stretching and range of motion. We do want them to move, and we don't want the baby to become tight over the course of their weeks or month-long stay in the NICU. And that's really, really common for our babies to become tight. So again, this fabric will allow them to move a little bit. But during our assessments, if the baby is tolerating a little bit of handling, we want to do some stretching. So in order to do that, I'm still going to keep the nest pretty close and snug to the baby. But I can lower this portion so we have room to stretch the baby's legs. So if you notice, I'm holding this fabric and I'm grabbing this roll and pulling it down a ways. So I'm giving us more room to stretch the baby's legs. And then I can still bring this kind of snug, so he's still pretty well contained. I can give him some containment of the arms, and then we can do a little bit of stretching on the legs. So, however the physical therapist or occupational therapist recommends. Do a little bit of range of motion, encourage the parents to do this. And of course, this is, as much as the baby tolerates some range of motion. And then the same thing would be for the upper body. So now I'm going to, provide a little bit of containment on the legs. And now I can loosen this portion to do a little stretching and range of motion on the baby's arms. And again, whatever the physical therapist or the occupational therapist recommends.